On defense, let's go and start at Buck. Um, starting there, that's an easy one. Barron Sorrell. Tough part of this position is the backup. I think you can probably say it's going to be Justice Finkley heading into the season. I'll explain in a little bit why, but I think you're going to see rotations here. I think you could be looking at an or situation between Jamon Tapp and Justice Finkley. Tapp hasn't made the leap I was hoping he would this year. I'll just be honest. I think he's got all the potential in the world still, but the fact that it hasn't happened yet, that he's made that leap, is a little concerning. Yeah, that's where I'll go. Finkley is the guy that will get the second most reps there.
I think that's fair. I mean, Barron Sorrell, obviously the guy, and those two guys. I'm a little higher on Jamon Taft, I guess. I don't think Finkley's been overly impressive this fall either. So I think it's still very up for grabs. And while we mentioned at the top that we've kind of liked the way that all these position battles have been solidified, there certainly needs to be some work done to solidify that too deep. And Buck is kind of one of the main spots here where no one has really just grabbed it and stepped up. So I think Finkley and Tapp bring two different skill sets to the table, and that will probably allow them to split the backup reps. I think it is more likely that Finkley does get more reps, though. We saw him on the field a lot towards the end of 2022, and obviously he's very good against the run. And I think he certainly has a role on this defense. So I'll agree with you. In totality, I give the position a B. I do think Barron Sorrell has a chance. I don't know. I don't think he'll be a double-digit sack guy. I think he will be like a 6, 7, 8 sack guy. And then the depth is solid, but not anything that stands out when it comes to Finkley or Tapp. So I'll go B overall for the Buck position.
Where I think Sorrell is really going to improve, and I think he was already good there last season, I think he's really going to become like one of the best edge run defenders in the Big 12. He was already really good for us last season in that regard, just like setting the edge. But I think he had 10 tackles for loss in edge run defense last season. I think I'd seen that correctly. Top 5 in the Big 12 at the position. I think actually just among defensive linemen and edge rushers. So I think it'll be good there. Yeah, pass rush is going to be the question. With more effective pass rushers opposite him, that'll help out. To what degree, I don't know. I think for him, he's just got to get home more often. He had, 35 QB pressures last season, 5.5 sacks. He just got to get to the quarterback more, clean it up. So I'll give that a B-. I mean, Sorrell's the best edge rusher on the team right now, but let's go Jack, and then we'll cover the rest of the defensive line. I think Jack is pretty easy. Ethan Burke's going to be the starter. He's had a good camp, good offseason. I think that's his starting job. And then backing him up, I actually think it's going to be Colton Vasek. I mentioned it during the spring, something caught my eye. Vasek was starting to defend the run better, and then it caught my eye again when he put on 15 pounds during or coming out of summer workouts. And so I'm a little concerned with their ability in run defense. I think that that some opposing teams are going to attack that side of the line when Texas has those guys in the game. But I mean, from a pass rushing perspective, Texas needs a boost there, and both Burke and Vasek give them a lot of length, a lot of natural pass rushing ability.
I completely agree. Burke has been, definitely a standout through the whole offseason, and Vasek has come along as well. And I think they provide a nice 1-2 punch, though they kind of have the same strengths and weaknesses like you just hinted at. But I do think Vasek will get a couple sacks this year, and he will be kind of a nice chess piece to have on third downs. But yeah, I mean, shout out Westlake. It's solid to have Jack number 1 and Jack number 2. Yeah, I would say I would give this position, a B-. I do have confidence in Ethan Burke. We just haven't really seen it. He only had 50 or so defensive snaps last year. And obviously the depth behind him also is very inexperienced with
Did I give this one? I don't know. I actually will give this one a B. I'm pretty high on the position because I think for what you need from them, because mind you too, you have Anthony Hill that's going to help as a hybridized edge rusher. And you also have some pretty good run defenders here in Sorrell, Byron Murphy, Tavondre Sweat, Jalen Ford. I think if Benda can hold up, can kind of toe the line as well, then I think that this was going to be a solid group. Let's do nose tackle. I mean, Byron Murphy's the starter there. If we look back on it this season and Byron Murphy's the best defensive player we have, I wouldn't be surprised. And the dude was named to Bruce Feldman's Freaks list for the year. I think for Murphy, just can he be a little bit more productive? I think it's a big question. I think there's not a question that he's going to be able to win his matchups, just really get a lot of movement on the interior offensive line and generate some pass rush, but can he start getting more run stuffs, more sacks, pressures, things like that? I would probably say backing up him at nose, I would want it to be Trill Carter and Sadir Mitchell just so we have a little bit more size and that we hold up better in run defense at zero tech. But I think it'll probably be Broughton. There's a difference in like my own view and what it probably will be. Overall, I would still give this position because I think we have 4 guys that can play in certain situations here. And Byron Murphy, again, I think is just one of the best players on the defense. I'll give this an A-.
Yeah, I'm with that A- grade as well. I think, like you said, Byron Murphy is going to finish the year as one of, if not the most important player on this defense. And then this is what I like to see out of a group. You have 4 guys who you can play. 2 of them, Byron Murphy and Trill Carter, you know what you're getting. Byron Murphy, obviously the level's a little higher than Trill Carter, but you can still put Carter on the field and know you're getting solid reps at the nose. And then the other 2 guys, Vernon Broughton and Sadir Mitchell, and the fluctuation might be a little more, but they do have that high ceiling. Unfortunately, we're kind of grouping Vernon Broughton in the same camp as Sadir Mitchell, even though this is Broughton's 4th year on campus. That's a little bit of an issue. But he seems like he has taken strides in fall camp, and I would agree with you that I think he's going to get that second run behind Byron Murphy. And, in totality, I think this is going to be one of the stronger units on the defense just because you do have so many bodies to throw at the position. And I think that's going to be very helpful early on in the season against a team like Alabama or in week 4 against a Baylor. So, yeah, I'm going to go A- as well.
Yeah, I would just hope that when we're rotating, it's getting Vernon Broughton a little bit. Or I did a deep dive on this earlier in the offseason where it's just a night and day difference for Broughton when he's playing 3 tech versus like 1 or 0. He gets pushed off the ball very easily. He's a smaller defensive lineman. I think the depth's strong here. I think we agree on that. They do rotate. Bo Davis likes that, so multiple guys are going to get looks here. That's the important thing. Defensive tackle. Starter, hands down, Tavondre Sweat. Again, wouldn't doubt that we look back on the season, he's one of the best defenders. He already is. He sounds like he really came on strong late in fall camp, too. I didn't really have any question marks about him heading into the season anyway, but just good to hear. Behind him, definitely Alfred Collins. I think Alfred Collins is your 3rd guy right now because I don't know if there's been more of a pleasant surprise in fall camp than Alfred Collins. He's been the most consistent he's been since he arrived on the 40. They've been using him in different spots. I think you're going to see him used in 3-4 IN5 technique this year. I think similar to a Moro Ojimo type role, just more physical or more physically gifted, a little bit more versatile. It's still going to be the question of that consistent motor. I mean, because Ojimo never stopped last year, ultra consistent, ultra productive. But I'll give this one an A. I feel very confident about 3 tech.
Yeah, I would agree with that assessment and grading of it. I'll give it an A as well because we know we're getting Tavondre Sweat, and that's high-level production every time he steps on the field. And like you mentioned, Alfred Collins has been arguably the best surprise of fall camp. He's finally kind of showing why he was such a highly touted recruit
Yeah.
At a high school. So I think the duo there is tremendous, and I don't think you're going to find unless you look at the Georgias and Alabamas of the world, you're going to find a better 1-2 punch at defensive tackle. I feel very confident with Sweat and Collins.
Yeah. Completely agree. Well, oh yeah, you said you would give it an A.
As well, and I mentioned a couple videos ago, Jure Bledsoe is a guy who has a chance to, continue to keep progressing, and that's someone who could potentially see, third string reps at defensive tackle. So I'm confident about this position 1 through 3. I would say.
I think with Bledsoe, you almost got like I think he's like a weird combination of like Alfred Collins and Justice Finkley, where he's got like a lot of just insane physical gifts to get after the pass rusher, but like he's not. I don't know if he's like got that flexibility, that bend, that quickness off the edge right away to just be able to. Because I mean, if he did, he'd already be the starter at Jack. But he could be someone to push for a spot on the 2 deep. Definitely will next season. So I like that you mentioned him. Mike linebacker. This one, I guess, could be easy. I think heading into the season, it's going to be Jalen Ford, and then I think the backup will be Jet Bush. Sounds like he's actually made some pretty positive strides this year. I think it's easy to laugh when we bring up Jet Bush, which is unfortunate, but he's given the team some solid snaps the last few years. It's kind of like a Michael Taft situation where came in. I think he was like a 2-star recruit. Full scholarship, though, and he's contributed, I think definitely surpassed that recruiting value, to say the very least. But Leonga Lafau, I think, ultimately will be the backup Mike linebacker by the end of the season. Dude's just showing too much maturity. He's making too many plays. He's too good in pass coverage, too good at finding the ball. Because I think Lafau might be the starter Mike linebacker. I mentioned this a lot, but I think he might be the starter Mike linebacker next season.
Yeah, I completely agree with you.
A all the way for me, maybe an A+. I love this position group.
Yeah, I'm going to go A. I mean, we know what we're getting from Jalen Ford. This is another one of those ideal position groups looking through the depth chart. You have your all-conference starter in Jalen Ford. You have your backup who, while the ceiling is a little limited, you know that they can come in and give you good reps in Jeff Bush. Then you have that talented younger player in Leona Lafau. So I think ideally that's kind of what you want in the 1, 2, 3 pecking order on the depth chart.
I think that's fair. The good thing too with Bush and Lafau is that if Bush isn't doing well, or if he's struggling, whatever that is, in live game scenarios, you can just bring in Lafau. It's he brings you a higher upside probably, and he's got a lot. I would say obviously a lot higher upside for the future. Weak side linebacker, will linebacker. David Benda, we mentioned this earlier. I think David Benda is going to be the starter there heading into the season. You could see Mo Blackwell in that same linebacker role just so they can get that, more of that coverage aspect, those natural coverage ability that he had when he was playing safety. We don't even need to cover Sam linebacker in this either. So, I think Benda, then probably Blackwell heading into the season, because he's going to be more of a specialized linebacker. And then Anthony Hill, though, I'm going to give it to Blackwell just because of seniority, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's an or there. Hill could be the starter by the end of the season here, especially if Benda has some struggles on the field. I think Benda will be solid. I don't think he'll be great, but I think he'll be solid. I would give this position group a B. There's still some uncertainty here.
Yeah, I think not the uncertainty, but the question of how quickly will Anthony Hill's greatness show is kind of what's capping me grading this position. Because like you mentioned, Benda's going to be solid. But if Hill just flashes immediately like he's been doing all fall camp, he could be the starter by week 6 by Red River. So I'm going to go B as well, because I don't have I have confidence in Benda, but there are certainly going to be some issues with him on the field. And then Mo Blackwell, Will linebackers really isn't. It's kind of fitting a square
He,
peg in a round box. Like
he hasn't put on the size that he would need to play the position yet.
exactly. So he's
So,
definitely going to get some reps, but it's not really the ideal fit for him. I think Anthony Hill, if he adapts to the position quickly, like we could go back and grade this position at the end of the year, and it could be an A. But going into the year, I think B is a fair grade for it.
yeah, that's fair. I think you're looking at a situation next year where it's like probably it's going to be Anthony Hill's job, and the backup might be Samaje Burrell.
Mm-hmm.
I think that would be your ideal situation. Okay, let's do boundary corner first for the secondary. This is interesting. I think that the week 1 depth chart is going to show Ryan Watts as boundary corner 1, obviously, and then I think it's actually going to probably show Muhammad as 2. I think there's no way that Muhammad isn't on the 2 deep, but I think, and I'll touch on field corner more in a second, but just to explain here, I think that Terrence Brooks, Gavin Holmes are going to occupy field corner for the 2 deep, and I think Watts 1, Muhammad 2, because he can play boundary or field. Muhammad can. So
yeah, I completely agree with you. It'll obviously be Ryan Watts as your starting boundary, and I think Manny Muhammad will be listed second. Though I would not question that he gets more reps at field corner than he does boundary, even though he's third on the field corner depth chart. If that makes sense.
Yep. I'm gonna give this an A+, just because you got 2 all Big 12 caliber corners here with NFL futures.
I'm going to go not that high. I'm going to go A, just because I really like Ryan Watts, but I don't think his ceiling is as high as someone, like a Kool-Aid McKinstry at Alabama. I'm very confident in his play, but I think A+ is just tough to give out. And Manny Muhammad, from all signs, is going to be terrific. But you just always have that slight pause about a freshman. So, I think it's going to be a really solid group duo, but I just can't give it an A+.
Field corner. We said it earlier. I think it's going to be Terrence Brooks to start, Gavin Holmes, but there's going to be rotation, or there's going to be people rotating in and out here. Field corner, I'm going to give both. You know what? I'll just say this. I'll give both cornerback spots an A, because I think you can kind of lump them both together.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I'll go an A- at field corner. So I think Terrence Brooks has a higher ceiling than a Ryan Watts on the boundary, but I'm not as comfortable with him week in and week out. Like, I know that Watts is going to be solid every week. I do think Terrence Brooks can get a little ball hawky and has a tendency to get beat deep a little bit. But with Brooks and Holmes as the 1-2 duo, potentially having Manny Muhammad rotating as a third guy, you can't give it anything lower than an A-.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay, let's go nickel. I think at this moment, I actually think that Jahdae Barron is the most versatile defender that we have. I think the best, that title would have to go to Jalen Ford right now, with Jahdae Barron, Byron Murphy, T'Vondre Sweat, some combination of those guys. Jalen Catalon, if healthy, obviously in that mix as well. Behind Barron, this is tough. I think it's probably going to be Austin Jordan. He's been getting more consistent second team reps at nickel. We got probably 4 different guys that could play nickel right now in that backup spot. Gilbo, I think, has the higher ceiling compared to Austin Jordan, definitely. But I think Jordan, he's just been healthier. He's taken more reps there. I'll give this group an A- because I think you got some uncertainty behind Barron, but Jahdae Barron's so good. Yeah.
I'm going A+ on nickel. Yeah, I think nickel is one of the deepest positions on the roster, and the talent stacks up as well. Like Jade Barron, I know you lead the Jade Barron fan club, but I'm second if you're first because
All right.
he's an absolute animal. If you want to have some fun, just go watch his. You don't even have to watch his highlights against TCU. You can just turn on the full game, and it basically is a Jade Barron highlight show. So I think he's one of the best nickels, if not the best nickel in the country. And I think it's going to be an or situation when it comes to Gilbo and Jordan ahead of the Rice game. Like you mentioned, Gilbo has the higher ceiling. I think Gilbo is a better player than Jordan. So I personally would have Jalen Gilbo as the second nickel. But that's no shade at Austin Jordan because if Austin Jordan is, third in the pecking order, I think he is the best third stringer you have on the roster at any position, besides maybe quarterback or maybe receiver with Jonte Cook.
I won't, like I said, I'm not going to give it an A plus for this reason that Jalen Gilbo, you have the injury question. I mean, yes, if you have to call someone into the game, something were to happen to Barron, I feel better about Gilbo than I do Austin Jordan. It's just Austin Jordan, he's been healthier, he's taken more snaps. I still think the floor is high enough on Jordan. He's versatile enough. He played safety and corner in high school. He's cross-trained plenty. Sounds like he's had a good camp, not a great one, but a good one. Ultimately, though, yeah, you have a lot of guys that could come into the mix here because Warren Roberson is a guy that could get snaps here too. Yeah, I mean, it's a good group. That's for sure. There's no doubt about that. Field safety. Jaron Thompson, obviously your starter. I don't know exactly where Derek Williams will play as the backup safety because you could play him at any position in the secondary. He's good enough, versatile enough. He's just an animal back there. You know what? I'll put Derek Williams there because I think Keaton Crawford's probably your backup at boundary, but BJ Allen, I think, is going to figure in there as well because I think they want like that BJ Allen, Derek Williams duo to kind of be the future at safety.
Mm-hmm.
So, because you're losing Jaron Thompson and Jalen Catalon next year, Derek Williams is obviously going to be your day one starter next year. Potentially, if you have anything happening to Catalon or Thompson, Williams is going in first at either spot. I have no doubt about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll say Derek Williams at field safety just because I think Keaton Crawford would be backing up at boundary. I mean, in that situation, if you're putting Jaron Thompson and Derek Williams together, I'm giving that just a flat out A.
Jaron Thompson, the vocal leader of the secondary, and Derek Williams, I mean, the Raptor.
Yeah.
Only good things have been heard about him, and he's a guy who has a chance to be a 3 and done on the 40. So I'm going to go an A as well. I feel confident with him on the field as a true freshman.
Yeah, fair enough. Boundary safety, Jalen Catalon's your week one starter there. Backing up, Keaton Crawford probably, but like Michael Taff, that might be an or situation. They really like Michael Taff. He's contributed. He's been decent to solid, I think is a good way to put it. Obviously, he's very assignment sound, knows where to be, locates the football well, but I mean, limited upside athletically. So Keaton Crawford, I think it just depends on how well he does if he does get those reps. Because if he's having trouble in coverage, I think they're going to be quick to pull the plug on him for a guy like Michael Taff. I'll give this position group because I'll give it a B. You got the injury risk with Catalon. I know I'm being a little too pessimistic about this, a little too honest, but how good do we honestly? I know if it's Catalon going down with injury that it's probably Derek Williams coming in, but then I don't know what you do. You're 3 deep at safety this year for the most part.